Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Log Show here on WSJU and here on YouTube for those of you tuning in. How is everybody doing today? For those of you on YouTube, if you can, just let me know how the audio is. I am trying out a new mic here for YouTube with me being alone today. So I do really want to know how the audio is over here on YouTube. I want to make sure the mic and everything is right. It is what I'm double checking right now, but I believe it is. So yeah, please just let me know how the audio is over there on YouTube if you can in the comment section. If not, you are listening on WSJU. How is everybody doing today? It honestly feels like a very long time since I've been in this studio and and being able to do this show. It feels like old times in here by myself. Sadly, no Eric today. He had something to do. He had a meeting for work. Obviously, no interview like there was last week for those of you who tuned in on Thursday of last week. And last Tuesday was the election, which turned out however you thought it turned out. And that is why we weren't live on Tuesday. So here we are now on a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Tuesday, November 12th, and a lot has happened across leagues. I mean, a lot of games have been played since the last time we've talked. The NFL trade deadline has happened since the last time we've talked. College football playoff is really starting to get going, getting underway. Seeing how that tunes in, how that happens, how that goes will be so much fun and interesting. I'll definitely talk about that. And then not only that, to end the show today, I will be talking about a moment that all of us UFC fans at least, will rejoice in. The return, finally, it was supposed to be at MSG last year. We got it booked for this Saturday, November 17th at MSG. Johnny Bones Jones will defend his heavyweight strap against the Stipe Miocic. And that one will obviously be one for the ages. We did just get news today in that event that Alexa Grasso was injured. I don't remember her being in that event, but apparently she was. I'm gonna double check it right now. But because that broke a lot of news today for this UFC 309 event. Yeah, no, she's not on the event. But Alexa, I believe she is vacating the strap, though, is where the news became big. So that was also huge in the UFC world, which we will talk about much, much, much later. Yes, we will talk about that much later at the end of the day. But right now, I want to talk about football. I feel like it's been so long since I've really been able to get into football on the show. You know, so much has happened. Like I said, the NFL trade deadline happened. If you guys haven't followed me on TikTok, if you haven't followed me on TikTok, follow me now. I did post a little review over there of the NFL trade deadline, what happened, what was going on there, which was big. So that was a lot of fun. And like I said, if you guys don't follow me over there on TikTok, please do. But yeah, I mean, trade deadline was a lot of fun. You know, a lot happened on that day. You had Darius Smith move. You had Preston Smith move. You had the Steelers also got Deontay. No, they didn't get Deontay Johnson. They got. I'm blanking now. I'm blanking on the moves made. Man, it was a fun NFL trade deadline too. Let me pull up the doc I have that has all the things there. But while I do that, let me just talk about. I mean, yeah, NFL trade deadline happened. The Saints fire head coach Dennis Allen finally. Oh my God! As a Saints fan, was that a great day to sit there and rejoice? I was so. I mean, I hate to sit here and call myself happy for seeing a man get fired. That is a guy who, at the end of the day, it is his job. You know what I mean? He does got to support a family with that money. But as a Saints fan, God, am I happy to see Dennis Allen gone after that atrocious loss to the Carolina Panthers that just hurt to see, man. It was just it was a rough one to watch. You know, I talked about it on this show with Eric And I said, he made the joke that if the Saints lose, that I should have to get a an Alabama tattoo on me because it was that unlikely to us that the Saints were going to lose that game. Nonetheless, they did. They lost that game to the Carolina Panthers. Bounced back this week with new head coach Dan Rizzi. That one I was so happy to see. Um, obviously I'm not going to talk much about 2 weeks ago, the week we missed with the interview and the election that I didn't get to talk about on the show much. I'm upset I didn't get to talk about it, but it is what it is. We moved past that week. Going into this upcoming week, I was very excited to see what would to become of this Saints team. A Saints team with a lot of injuries. A Saints team with Chris Olave now on IR. A Saints team that after that Panthers loss, it wasn't just the Saints fans getting upset. It wasn't just the media pointing out how bad of a loss it was for the New Orleans Saints. It was also, sorry for those of you on YouTube, I was just checking something with the mic. But it was also a test of, I lost my train of thought checking the mic. What I was saying is, not was it just fans getting upset, not was it just the media saying it was a bad loss. It was also the players came out. Cam Jordan came out after the game with a tweet. I'm sorry to the fans for what happened. We're better than this. We shouldn't be losing to a team like the Carolina Panthers this year. You have Kalen Sanders, who went viral this year for his interception against the Kansas City Chiefs, come out and be like, and just tweeting a bunch of random stuff. You have Michael Thomas, a former Saint, talking about the Chris Olave injury and Derek Carr and this and that. And you have so much coming out that it's just so clear that the team is so lost that there was no other option but to fire Dennis Allen. And it was an option that I thought had to be made in the offseason. You guys could go back. I can't pull up live clips on this show, but you guys could go back to when the offseason was happening, when it was week 18 of last year, and Jameis Winston has to play, where they go for it on the Atlanta Falcons to kind of rub in the victory. And Dennis Allen comes out after the game and says, I didn't call that play. I wanted a knee. I apologize for my players did. Looking at Mickey Loomis there, I said that the locker room was lost. Never mind after a Carolina loss 8 weeks later, where the players are now going to Twitter to talk about their disdain and their uncomfortableness and what's not going well for them in the season. So going into that week, I think there was no other option to fire Dennis Allen. Now, Dennis Allen tried his best. He didn't do terrible. He won against bad teams, and he did okay with what he had. He had 2 years of a very bad team that he took to okay records. But when he got a good team, it didn't click. He wasn't very good against good teams when they played like playoff teams against 500. Those are the teams they lost against heavily. And then you go into this year, they started this year so hot, the New Orleans Saints. You have that game week 1 where you just shock everyone and go off. And then you go into Dallas week 2, and Dallas, yes, is proven to not be as great as a team as we may have thought when the Saints played them in week 2, but they 110% shocked the world in week 2 as well, playing so well in week 2. Just everything clicking together, just everything going so well for them. And they look, going into week 2, people were calling them Super Bowl contenders, one of the surprise teams of the year. And then just to go on and to drop 7 straight, which was the longest losing streak in Saints history since 1999, longest losing streak in Saints history in my entire life, losing those 7 straight games. And they weren't pretty too. At first it was okay. You know what I mean? It was a close loss to the Chiefs. It was some, you know what I mean? It was the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta who were hot at the time. It was some good teams. But then the competition kept getting worse for this New Orleans Saints team. Like I said, there was Carolina 2 weeks ago. There was, you know what I mean? The loss against the Buccaneers was bad because that ended up being a blowout where the Buccaneers had 51 points. Yeah, like you have the loss of the Broncos, which looks very, very bad with Spencer Rattler running some of the worst offense I think I've ever seen on an NFL field. You have the loss against the Chargers, where nothing clicked. So be able to get this win under Dan Rizzi, under a new head coach, is just, I mean, obviously, in my opinion, a very positive sign for this Saints team and for what can happen in the future. You know, just in this game alone, you have Derek Carr have a season high in pass yards. He had 262 yards. You have Kamara have 109 yards. You have MVS coming off just being signed after being cut from the Bills to make room for Amari Cooper. He has 3 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he makes an immediate impact. Just an insanely good week for the Saints. And yes, I know this tends to happen with teams. You get this new head coach boost that lasts a week or two. Am I saying the Saints are going to bounce back, and go 10-7 and make the playoffs? No, I'm not saying that at all. I doubt that would ever happen. It's very unlikely that that happens. This team is not built for that to happen with the injuries on both sides of the ball. That's not what I'm saying is going to happen with Dan Rizzi. I don't even know if Dan Rizzi is going to be hired after this year. I'm saying making analyzing Dan Rizzi's performance, making a performance review after 1 week after what I saw with Dennis Allen. I was very happy. Obviously, the team seemed, rejuvenized, energy, all that seemed to be there with the Saints, which always happens when you get this new head coach, which was great to see. So that was fun to see. And they get a big win against a rival. I obviously always love to see a win against the Atlanta Falcons, who are this year not a bad team. Kirk Cousins, Ray McLeod, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. You got a lot of pieces down there. Their defense has played well. So that Atlanta team is a good team to beat in a week where obviously you have some things that are gonna that happen that aren't normally gonna happen. You know, Young Ho Koo is not normally gonna miss 3 field goals. One of them like a 34-yarder. You know, I'll give the Saints the block. The block was a good setup. That was good special teams, but it's not often that you're gonna have 2 missed field goals by Young Ho Koo or Young Wei Koo while also getting a blocked field goal. So obviously things went on the Saints side to get this win, but it's a big win to end the losing streak that I love to see. It's a losing streak I've needed to see end. Um, I think the next step for the Saints is just get rid of Derek Carr. Derek Carr has not performed at all. He's not won it all. Michael Thomas went on a rant on him about Twitter. It was just a hate-filled rant. Derek Carr, I do think, addressed it fine in the media, but it was just a hate-filled rant from Michael Thomas, who it seemed everyone in New Orleans for a while, like Drew, loved Michael Thomas down there. So to see them not get along is weird. And this is no offense to Derek Carr, the person. I love him as a human being. I think he's a great leader of a team. But the Derek Carr experiment in New Orleans seems to be over, in my opinion. I think it's donezo. I think it's move on time. You're sitting here with, as of right now, I believe a top 5 pick. I believe they're projected for the 5th overall pick at the exact moment, the New Orleans Saints. And Derek Carr's now been here. Yes, we paid him a lot of money, but Derek Carr's now been here for 3 years. There's been absolutely no success. Absolutely no success as Derek Carr had. The closest thing we got to success was those 2 games earlier this year. But besides that, there's not been one time where the Saints have been led by Derek Carr where they've seemed like a playoff team, where they've played like a playoff team, where they've put stuff together like a playoff team. Now, do you want to see maybe was that all Dennis Allen's fault? Maybe it was. But Derek Carr wasn't able to do it in anywhere else that he was. So I don't see why we could trust that he's just going to pick up under a new head coach. I don't see it happening. No one in Las Vegas/Oakland was able to do it, including Dennis Allen, including Josh McDaniel, including John Gruden, um, Jack Del Rio. There was a lot of a rotation of head coaches and quarterback coaches that this man has gone through, and none of them have seemed to be able to figure out success with Derek Carr. So I think as the New Orleans Saints, it's time to move on from Derek Carr. I think it's time to look at a young quarterback. Look at a Shador Sanders. Look at a I don't know. Look at someone, but Derek Carr, man, is not the answer. It's that simple. Derek Carr is not the answer. He's tried to click. It's almost clicked every year, and I'm tired of this almost clicking. I'm tired of this limbo of this 7-8 of this mediocre quarterback play over and over and over and over and over and over. It's time to move on. Derek Carr is not winning you a Super Bowl, and that's what you need to win in this league. Point blank, period. I don't care if Derek Carr, with a new head coach next year, goes on a run and makes me a goddamn playoff game. I don't care about that. Not at his age. Not the way he's played. I'm done with it. I'm done with it as a Saints fan. Move on from Derek Carr. I want Super Bowls. Derek Carr's not winning me one of those. Case point, period. Move on from Derek Carr. I'm done talking about it. I'm done talking. Another team who feels like how I do as a Saints fan, but they shouldn't, is a team who sits here in New York, resides here in New York, plays their games over there in New Jersey over at MetLife Stadium, and that is the New York Jets. Another bad loss for those Jets, man. Another really, really, really bad loss for the New York Jets, man. 34 3 or not 34, maybe it was 43. I just had it up. 31, sorry. 31-6, man. Against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, the Jets were putting stuff together too. A good win against the Houston Texans on Thursday last week. But just, oh my God, was that a piss poor performance out of the New York Jets offense on Sunday? It's just not. I don't know what it is, man. I really Aaron's not playing well. Like, nobody's playing well in that offense. Not one person. It's got to go deeper than just coaching or even just to play on the field. It's got to go towards attitude. I feel like this team feels like they deserve to win. You know what I mean? They don't feel like they need to earn the win. They feel like they deserve to win. And maybe that's the problem there in New York, is that they feel like they deserve to win, not that they need to earn it, like I just said. Because over and over again, you just see this offense just come out and give piss poor performances. You know what I mean? You had it that one night against that one Sunday against New England. You had it this week, only putting up 6 against um only giving up 6 again, or only putting up 6 against Arizona. Just so many, and like I said, I feel like you want to blame coaching, but they've switched play calling, they've switched it all. You know, you had that 9-point performance against the Broncos, and then you come home, and then you play the Vikings, and you come home and you lose, and then you know what I mean? You go on that 5-game losing streak, and then you finally beat the Texans, and the offense looked good against the Texans, and it's just you come out and you go to Arizona, and you just look like that. Aaron only has 150 yards. Devontae and Garrett Wilson had 90 yards combined. Garrett Wilson had 41 yards. Devontae had 31. Like, Breece Hall had under 50 yards, or had under 60 yards again. It's just not clicking at all for this Jets offense. This Jets team as a whole, it just seems like it's not clicking for at this point. I don't know. I mean, obviously the Jets season at this point is one for the books, just like the Saints season is. Obviously they're waving the white flags, I feel like, down there in or not down there, over there in MetLife, over at One Jets Way in the New York facility. But I wish I could really just pin I don't know. I watch a lot of football. I've listened to a lot of people talk about a lot of teams for. I mean, people have done it obviously for longer than I have. I'm not a very old person. I'm only 22. You know, I'm still young in my life. I've only been doing this for so long. I've only been watching football for so long compared to some other people, some elders out there. But I have seen a lot of football teams, and I have seen a lot of offenses that are piss poor. They can't connect. And usually you can look at that offense and you can connect to what it is. You know, the O line's not clicking, which this O line isn't clicking amazingly, but they're not terrible. They're middle of the pack. You know, they don't have wide receiver weapons, but you have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson here. You know, you have, oh, they don't have a run game. You have Braylon Allen and Breece Hall. Oh, they don't have a quarterback. You have Aaron Rodgers. Oh, the head coach ain't a great play caller. They've switched play callers now twice. It's just this Jets team isn't clicking, and I think if I were to take a guess on something to pinpoint it with, that's what it would be. It would be their attitude. And it would be that I feel like maybe that this team is sitting there and they're going, hey, look at our team, man. Sauce Gardner. Like I was just saying, Garrett Wilson. We just got Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall. How do we not win games? Just look at us. I feel like that might be the attitude in the locker room, and I don't know if that's a coaching thing that needs to address that. I don't know if that's coming from the owner and trickling down. I don't know where that attitude is coming from, but it seems like that's the answer in New York, that they just have this attitude of cockiness that they feel like they deserve to go out and win. And my example of it is look at last week's interview with Aaron Rodgers. That Pat McAfee had on a long week on a Tuesday, where Aaron was smiling and having fun and doing this and oh, great team win. Oh, JJ said it wasn't gonna happen, and he's cracking up. Bro, you just won one game after a 6-game losing streak. You shouldn't be laughing, or a 5-game losing streak. You shouldn't be laughing. I mean, you've now lost 7 of your last 8. There's no or 6 of your last 7. There's no laughing matter here as the Jets anymore. You play Indianapolis this week. If you lose to Indianapolis as the Jets, you're in a bad spot, man. You're in a weird spot. You're in a rough spot, and I think you're in a really bad spot as the Jets, man. If you lose to Indianapolis, especially if they're not playing Anthony Richardson, a Joe Flacco Indianapolis that kind of seems to be all over the place right now, that currently decided to not sell on the season, but like really, really like be willing to play with a worse quarterback to give that young quarterback a message. A place that seems to be in disarray. The Jets at home. I mean, like I said, at this point it'd be a legendary run, like it would be for the Saints. You play the Colts, you have a bye week, but then you go the Seahawks. You still got the Dolphins twice. You still got to go into Buffalo. You got the Rams. You got. It's going to be a really hard road you got coming up for the Jets here. Aaron Rodgers was saying today on McAfee, which is the only insight we ever get to Aaron Rodgers, that he believes him, but what else is he going to say? What, he's going to sit there and go, yeah, the season's over? No, he's not going to say that. You can never expect him to say that. But the Jets have a really, really rough road coming up. They really do. It's going to be really tough for them coming up, seeing what they have, the way they've been playing. It's just it's such a disappointment of a season. I mean, I kind of wish I had someone here to bounce it off of right now, but it's such a disappointment of the season for the Jets. Just every week, and this is the sad part, is after the bye week was what everybody was saying was kind of their tough stretch with the Seahawks coming there. You have 2 games against the Dolphins, the Rams were playing okay. You have the Bills again, like you know what I mean, like this middle stretch was where they were supposed to win games. You lost to the Vikings and you fired your head coach, and there's a reason I said that was too early. Is you were sitting there at 2-3, and you fired a head coach, and then you continued to lose games. Maybe you wouldn't have bounced back so great against the Bills, even with Salah, but you had the run of Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, and then Indianapolis here. The only team you beat is the one team you should have lost to in that stretch. And that's what's so weird about this run right now for the Jets is they played so good that night against Houston. You saw so much potential in that team. And now you just sit there and it's just blech. It's just so blech. I don't know, man. It's a rough one. It really is. The Giants. I mean, the Giants don't have much to talk about. I did really miss the game this week in Germany because I really was not interested in waking up at 9:30 in the morning to watch all of the New York Giants versus the Carolina Panthers. I mean, I saw some film, and from what I could collect from that game, it was kind of what you expected, which was just an ugly football game that ended in an ugly way with that fumble at the end of the game by the Giants running back to set up the Carolina field goal. Just piss poor play on both sides of the field. It was a slow game. It was a boring game. To even try to stay up at 9:30 and watch that game probably would have been difficult. The Giants at this point, um, I think you have to assess. I think obviously everybody agrees you have to assess Daniel Jones, but not only assessing Daniel Jones, I think just like Malik Neighbors getting disgruntled so quickly in his NFL career, I think is scary to look at if you're John Mara, if you're Joe Shine, if you're Brian Dable, if you're this Jets front office or Giants front office and head coaching staff. Like I feel like it's concerning to see Malik Neighbors act the way at least the media's portraying he's been acting over the past few weeks. You know, you have this situation in Washington that a lot of people were upset about where he was dapping up Jalen Daniels in the middle of the game and doing stuff like that. Just the report coming out that Daniel Jones says, I don't know if this was real, but I saw this on the internet that and it went viral. The report that came out that Daniel Jones says he doesn't vote, and Malik Neighbors goes, so your decisions on and off the field are poor. And he could have been busting his chops, but still, it's like stuff like that. Um, it's just not a good look in the Giants locker room to see how everything's being handled there and how everything's going on there. Obviously, I think Daniel Jones has to be moved on from. He's making too much money and playing way too poor for someone who's making such little money. It's just, I don't know, man. It's really bad, that whole Giants situation. It's not a lot to talk about, you know. There's not a lot of future to look forward to there in New York for the Giants. I think you got to sit there, you got to assess it. You got to find a quarterback and go from there. It's that simple. I really do. Week 10, man. Week 10 was an interesting one. You had the Saints win with Dan Rizzi. You had you had the Giants. You had the Jets get blown out. Oh, Steelers. That I have this written down. There it is. The Steelers. That I wanted to talk about. The Pittsburgh Steelers, man. What a win. Can we talk about that? What a win by the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not one you see often, man. Uh, a blown play by Washington, a mental lapse by Washington there, and just an impressive win out of Russell Wilson and that Pittsburgh Steelers team. That Pittsburgh offense has looked so good with Russell Wilson there. Arthur Smith has used it so well. You know, you get Russell Wilson having 3 touchdowns, and you win the game off that Washington. You get the hard snap on 4th down. Washington jumps, and you see everyone in Pittsburgh get so hyped, so happy, which is a good sign to see as a team. I mean, they looked very well in that game. George Pickens went off against a very good Washington team as well, who played well. You know, you had Terry McLaurin who had 113 yards. Jalen Daniels didn't play bad at all. Austin Eckler had 2 touchdowns. You know, the Washington team played well, and Pittsburgh not only won, outsmarted them in the end there too on that 4th down. You know, you have Russ not having that many yards. He had 199 yards and under 200 yards, but still threw for 3 touchdowns. Like I said, you have Pickens who had 5 receptions for 93 yards. So it was a very good performance of the Pittsburgh Steelers getting this 1 point win, getting a big win that I believe puts them at first place right now in or puts them in second place right now. No, yeah, puts them in first place right now in the AFC North above the Baltimore Ravens, and it's just such a big win for them. And like I said, they look good with Justin Fields. Don't get me wrong. I was talking about that, how I liked how they looked with Justin Fields. They look like a better version of that with Russell Wilson in that offense. They look a little more polished. Russell's making good decisions. He's getting, and it's resulting in wins. I mean, it is resulting in a lot of wins here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Uh, it's resulting in a lot of wins here for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Now sitting at 7-2. They've won four straight. Um, and like I said, it was weird to see because they've won all three games with Russell Wilson now, and their first game was against the Jets. And his second game was against the Giants. So it was scary to see how. And then they had the bye week. So a lot of people were questioning. I was definitely questioning how the Steelers would play against Washington this week. Going into this, it was going to be very interesting to see how they would have put it all together, playing finally a team that was above 500, a team that a lot of people say is one of the best teams in the league right now, and I would agree with that sentiment. And they came out, and like I said, they looked like they could run with that team. I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team, this whole AFC North, outside of the Cleveland Browns, I think is pretty scary right now. Obviously, you have Baltimore there with Derrick Henry, who's playing out of his mind. Lamar Jackson, who's right now put on pace to win another MVP. They traded for Deontay Johnson, even though he didn't get a lot of snaps, but you get a wide receiver there that just adds to their weapons. That include Duvernay and uh I'm blanking. I don't know why I'm blanking on the other weapon. But and then you obviously have a defense there that has played very good all year. A defense that also brought in a star cornerback in uh uh Tre'Davious White. I apologize for the blank there. It was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, they bring in Tre'Davious White too. So Baltimore, obviously very good. We just talked about Pittsburgh. Cincinnati's been starting to put it together after a rough start, which I told you was going to happen. I think everyone kind of wrote Cincinnati off early, and I think a lot of people do always. And Cincinnati right now is a playoff team. They've been putting stuff together. They lose that close game to Baltimore, but yeah, they put that together, and it's the AFC North is interesting, man. The AFC North is definitely an interesting one to see how this one gets clicked and put together coming up for the future. And just like I was saying, such a good win for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Man, the playoffs are coming up, man. Looking at this playoff picture, the playoffs are coming up. Playoffs get interesting. You have right now in the AFC because I kind of want to end up with the NFL here. I do want to start moving on. I definitely want to talk about college football for a little bit with those playoff rankings coming out tonight, which will be very interesting. The AP rankings came out yesterday, so I kind of want to talk about the AP top 12, see where I think stuff can maybe bounce around compared on what happened last week. I do want to definitely start talking about college football more on this show with the playoff coming up. But I mean, right now in the NFL playoffs, AFC, I think everyone know you got the Chiefs after that crazy win with the blocked field goal over Denver last week. Just everything seems to be falling in their favor. They're right now sitting at the 1 seed. You got the Bills at 2. Uh, Steelers leading the AFC North and the Texans leading the AFC South. On your wild card teams, you got the Ravens, Chargers, and Broncos. Colts, Bengals, and Dolphins right on the bubble there. Those are the teams that I find interesting because the Colts are really weird because that team, sorry, Pat McAfee, sorry, everyone in Indianapolis, sorry, any Colts fans. I just really don't see that team clicking and putting it all together for a Super Bowl run. But that team gets interesting because Joe Flacco's Joe Flacco. If you could have Joe Flacco squeeze into like a 7 seed as this season comes to a close, and they're playing like a Pittsburgh Steelers, like that's a team that Joe Flacco has a lot of experience against that could get really scary for that team. And they could get maybe an upset win early in the playoffs. So the Colts team is definitely a team to watch at. I was just talking about the Bengals. They're starting to really put stuff together, even though they lose a really close game to Baltimore on Thursday last week. But they're really starting to put everything together there. in Baltimore. So that's that's or not in Baltimore in Cincinnati. So that's just a scary team to look at with Joe Burrow. Obviously, if they could get their running backs back with Zach Moss and them down there, and the defense could start putting stuff together a little bit better than they have, I think that team is scary to go on a run. And then the Dolphins. We saw the Dolphins last night. They got a big win last night over the LA Rams. Um, that's another team you see. You had Tua out for a couple weeks, and they really fell apart there without Tua. And now you see them starting to click. A lot of stuff getting put together, and it's going to be very, very interesting for that one down there. The NFC is even weirder. The NFC, I read the NFC playoff picture. I'm going to be honest. Outside of Detroit, I don't like none of these teams feel like Super Bowl teams to me. I don't know why. But you have Detroit, but like the Eagles are the 2 seed right now. They don't feel like a Super Bowl team. The Falcons don't feel like a Super Bowl team, even though they feel like a team that could go on a run. The Cardinals don't feel like a Super Bowl team. They feel like a team that could go on a run but not win a Super Bowl. You have the Vikings again, but they've been slowing down a lot recently. Sam Darnold has been kind of falling apart. He doesn't look great. You have Washington, which Washington I think can be a Super Bowl team very soon, but I find it hard to believe that a rookie quarterback's going to come into the playoffs and win a Super Bowl right away. So I just find it hard to believe that Washington's going to be able to do it. Maybe Green Bay. Maybe Green Bay. And then, like, you have the 49ers on the bubble if they could squeeze in. Obviously, I think that might be the scariest team out of this whole, like, 10 teams fighting for the playoffs right now is the 49ers, who technically don't have a playoff spot right now. Because they've been injury riddled all year, and they're starting to click everything together now. They're really starting to get all their pieces back. CMC just came back. Ricky Parcell gets his first touchdown. Hopefully, you can get some other pieces back. That's a team that, in my opinion, is going to be really, really, really scary coming up. Is that 49ers team on the late stretch of this season? That's not the only playoff coming up, though. College football has a playoff now, and it is also a 12-team playoff over there in the college football. First time ever, and this one is getting interesting. Obviously, this week we have a lot of big losses. You see Georgia. They lost to Ole Miss, which is big for them. Uh, the AP Top 25 came out yesterday. First of all, in basketball, it also came out. Shout out St. John's. We are ranked for the first time in over 5 years at number 22. Hoping to get another win tomorrow night against Wagner. All you students, pop out to that game. All you alumni, pop out to the game at Carnesecca tomorrow, 6:30 against Wagner. Support a team that is now a top 25 basketball program. But I do want to talk about college football. You still have Oregon at 1. You have Ohio State at 2, Texas at 3, Penn State at 4, Indiana at 5. That's the top 5 right now in the AP Top 25. Now that will definitely switch up. I feel like where you find it interesting is you have BYU at number 7 in the AP Top 25. In the AP Top 25, they are technically, obviously, going to be, or not obviously, they'll probably be technically ranked 4th in the college football ranking due to the way that division winners are held, right? So you'll take the 4 division leaders first, which is where it actually gets interesting because with the Miami loss this week, your 4 division winners with bye weeks become you have Oregon, Ohio State, and then I believe you would have Indiana at 3, or maybe an S or tennis or Texas. Yeah, then you have Texas at 3 because they're the SEC school, and then maybe Indiana at 4 because you can't have Penn State at 4. They're a Big Ten school. Or actually, no, you have Texas at 2 because Ohio State's also a Big Ten school. So right now, thinking of the college football playoff ranking, right? They're probably gonna have Oregon at 1, more likely than not. You have Texas at 2 with the SEC champion. 3, you go the Pac-12 champion, which would be, or not the Pac-12 champion. I mean the Big 12 champion, which currently is the BYU Cougars, which that gets real interesting. And then also you look at it like Indiana's a Big Ten team, Penn State's a Big Ten team, Ohio State's a Big Ten team. Notre Dame's independent, so they can't get a bye week because those are reserved for division winners. Alabama's an SEC school. Ole Miss is an SEC school. Georgia's an SEC school. So they have the AP has Miami at 12. But if you're going based off conference rankings, I believe currently SMU is the ACC champion. So to see how that turns out will be really interesting because technically that has to go to the division winner, those bye weeks. So that's where you could get real interesting there is where does SMU fit into this playoff? Um, Also, it gets real interesting now. Where do these three-team SEC schools fit in as we get closer to the end of the year? You have those top four. Um, I think personally, Indiana deserves to be a top five team. I think they deserve to have a home game. They just kind of get shorted in the whole sense of there's a lot of Big Ten teams that are really good this year. So, like, if you break it down, right, you get the first four teams all have to be division winners. We just went through them. Five is going to be Ohio State because they're technically the second best team in the league or in the country. You know what I mean? Four or five, six is going to be Penn State because they're ranked number 5 in the AP. A lot of people feel like they're a top 5 team in the country. So, and then you have Notre Dame. That's where you can kind of fight who's ranked higher. Is this Indiana team led by Signetti or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who have played very good this year, but you get a lot of weird stuff. Is Miami gonna get in? Is Ole Miss gonna get in? Boise State, are they gonna be able to squeeze in? I think the fun one to look at tonight, as we look at this college committee going back and forth to see who they choose. I feel like a really fun one there is going to look at the ACC. After this loss that Miami suffered, and it was not a good loss to Georgia Tech in the conference too of the ACC, with SMU now sitting at 8-1, technically leading the ACC, is the committee gonna sit there and go, well, we feel this Miami team's gonna bounce back, so we'll put them at 11 or 12 because that we feel they're gonna win the ACC? Or are you gonna put, you know what I'm saying? Are you gonna respect an SMU or a different ACC school? Maybe maybe Clemson or something like that. What happens there? And then also you look at this in the Pac-12, or not the Pac-12. I keep calling it the Pac-12 because the two teams that are fighting for it. In the Big 12, you have Colorado now lining up with BYU. What do you do there if BYU ends up losing to Colorado in the conference championship when that comes up in a few weeks, if they have the same record? So this year is going to be a lot of fun to look at what the committee does to see how they break it down, especially with the 12 teams. I think you are going to have a lot more teams mad this year than just the two you had in the past. I think you're going to have 4 or 5 schools who are going to sit there and argue, well, we should have been 11, we should have been 12, well, we deserved it over this school, we deserved it over that school. Well, yeah, they might have won their division, but we had a better record, we had a better strength of schedule. Whatever it really is to break it down, I don't know. But it's going to be fun to see how the committee does it this year, especially with the way that Indiana, a team that's not really good, usually a good football program, has put it together with Signetti. Giving a school like Boise State a chance, who have always been a very good non-Power 5 team. So stuff like that, seeing how BYU can maybe do, who've always been a Pac-12 team, and now they're kind of up there because they're in the Big 12 now. So it'll be really fun to see how this college football playoff turns out. The last thing I really want to talk about today is a little bit of a preview for something we've been waiting for a long time. I thought it was going to happen last year. I got tickets to the weigh-ins last year. I got tickets to the weigh-in again this year because I needed to see this man in person. This is the reason why week after week I will sit here and talk to you guys about UFC is because of this man. The return of Johnny Bones Jones is this weekend at Madison Square Garden. He will fight arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time against arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic, both of which, obviously, how could I not be excited to see this fight? Stipe's obviously Stipe sitting at 20-4. His last fight was a loss to Francis Ngannou. Has not fought since that Ngannou fight. And then obviously you have John Jones, who his last fight was against Cyril Gane, who he absolutely dominated. Was supposed to fight Stipe last year, ended up getting injured, tore his pec, had to back out. We got that amazing first first of two between Yuri and Alex, which was a great replacement, but nonetheless, seeing Stipe and John Jones back in an octagon this weekend is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see it. I'm so excited to see John Jones back in an octagon. It's something I've been waiting for almost 2 years now, and just seeing him back against Cyril Gane was so interesting. Um, and then obviously now you have the whole thing with Tommy Aspinall. He came out and said that he's not going to fight Tom Aspinall. I could have told you that. That fight is never going to happen. John Jones does not feel like Tom Aspinall is on his level. I was talking to one of my UFC friends about it a couple weeks ago, and he kind of agrees that maybe you shouldn't have given Aspinall the belt, the interim belt. You probably shouldn't have introduced that because now you're going to have this argument forever, and John Jones just isn't going to fight him. He's either laying the glove down against Stipe or he's going one last bout against Alex. He even said he's willing to give up the heavyweight strap and make the Alex fight a BMF title fight, and that's it. So that'll never happen, but we get him versus Stipe this weekend. We enjoy it. Possibly the last time we see either of these dudes in an octagon. I'm going to take John Jones, but I think it's going to be an absolute brawl. Obviously, you can never count out Stipe Miocic, and it's just to finally see these two get together in an octagon is going to be so much fun. It's surprising. You haven't seen much press for this. Not a lot of press conferences between these two because I think that that was probably in the contract where it was like, let's just fight and get it over with because I think they're both old and kind of just want to fight. So it's going to be a fun one to see this weekend. Not only that, you have the co-main event of you have Charles Do Bronx versus Michael Chandler. That rematch should be an absolute blast. Michael Chandler getting in the octagon after being held out for 2 years due to Conor McGregor just teasing him back and forth. So he had to say, yo, I want to fight, so I'm going to take one. And he took one against Charles, who's currently ranked number 2 in that lightweight division. That one should be a good one. The first one between them two was a brawl that Charles ended up winning by submission. So seeing them get back at it in the octagon this weekend in MSG should be an absolute blast. You also have Bo Nickel this weekend, who's a stud. Dana White's little prodigy who he loves to put out on big cards like this. He's fighting Paul Craig, probably his biggest opponent, so that one should be a fun one to watch. 309 this weekend should be great, man. It really should be. But that is all I got for you guys. Sorry for the quick show today, but that is all I got for you guys this weekend. On Thursday, we do have Eric should be back on, so that should be fun. We're going to do a little preview as me and him are going to be the play-by-play and color commentators this weekend on Sunday for the father-son matchup of Rick Pitino versus his son in New Mexico, St. John's, New Mexico, at MSG on Sunday, 12 o'clock. You will hear me and Eric on the call, so on Thursday, obviously, will we talk about Week 11 of the NFL? Yes, we will. But we will also be previewing that game on Sunday. St. John's plays Wagner tomorrow night, and then they will play New Mexico, like I said, 12 p.m. at the Garden on Sunday. So tune in for that. Obviously, you have 309 on Saturday. You have NFL all week. I will see everybody on Thursday. Thank you guys who do tune in on the YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in on the YouTube. Thank you for listening to me here on WSJU. I'm Logan. You're listening to the Log Show on WSJU. Pay attention to the socials. I know timing might be different on Thursdays. I need to settle something with the people who set the schedule here, so it might be an hour earlier or an hour later. So just check my socials for that. But I will see everyone Thursday. I'm Logan. This is the Log Show on WSJU. Oh wow, I'm repeating myself now. But sorry for that, but peace out, everyone.